Probably just heard me. We were just about to have a football conversation, so we're glad you cut us off because both teams are rubbish. So, hello, LinkedIn, us again. We don't know what happened there. We've had a bit of a technical issue, but hopefully we're back. Hopefully somebody's watching it. Kane, can you message Andrew to check that you can see us again, please? And hopefully you didn't hear me saying any bad words when we thought we were offline. So I don't actually know where we got to. So we were obviously, Stephen was in mid-flow talking about Hunter's a real amazing stuff, so don't know where we got to. So what I think we should do is go back to the remanufacturing centre part where you were talking about that.
Yeah,
because that for me, I think that's where we're going to cut off, and if not, then but at least we're going to talk about it again.
Yeah, so I mean, I think you'd asked about the question about whether we do it in need to change.
Yep.
And I think I spoke about that for about 5 minutes, but
so if you've heard this before, right? It's no deja vu. We'll go over it again because it's important.
But I guess it's a system level problem, right? It's about bringing innovation, technology, skills, policy, all of those things that make it up, and community and people at local authorities as well, by the way, is really important, to create that environment where we can start to get towards that tipping point where we are becoming more circular. So we've got a new centre called the Remake Value Retention Centre. I think you had just asked me, is that a virtual centre? No, where is that centre? So what we're doing is we're building out of the existing facilities. So we've already been doing this for 10 years. So we already have a lot of that capability in-house. So we're looking at different reconditioning techniques, things like inspection methods, digital passport, which we'll probably get on to. There's some really novel high-value recycling processes that the guys at Brad and Martin, my colleagues, work on, called field-assisted sintering technology, which is looking at consolidating titanium back to really forged product. And things like recycling composites, which is really important for aircraft and for wind turbines and all that good stuff. But the Remake Value Retention Centre, it's with the National Manufacturing Institute of Scotland, with University of Strathclyde, with University of Exeter and University of Sheffield. And it's bringing all of those disciplines together. It's working with their academic base on technology development, on business models, but it's also working with Zero Waste Scotland, for example, on policy, with BSI, on standards, and various other partners like our Skills Academy on skills. So we work across a range of areas. My particular discipline is on kind of remanufacturing. And I think we were talking about product value. I don't know how far back that was, right? But for me, it is all about, product value. It's about, like your business, you're trying to keep those products going for as long as you possibly can. And that's where the value lies. That's where the best economic opportunity lies, because you can remanufacture it and you can provide it with warranty and you can maybe sell it for the same price back into the market as an example of that. From an environmental point of view, you only need to do small things to that. So you can save up to about 99% of emissions compared to new. And from a social opportunity, it creates really high value jobs, because a lot of these processes that we're having to develop are quite complex, you know. So that's what I think where we got to.
I think so. And I'm glad we went back that far, because that was an important message, that whole bit, right? So I'm hoping that if we get cut off at any point in that time, then people are still getting to hear it. Because one of the things that, when I first started speaking about the kind of remanufacturing of things and getting design changes and to think about circular economy at the beginning, I'd never really thought about it like that. I just thought we'll just keep all this old stuff to run as best we can, be using data. But then you're going, see if you can design something so as it's built that different bits can be changed, so as you're changing a part rather than changing a full machine out or a full bit of something or whatever, or it's a cup or whatever we're talking about. It's having that mindset at the beginning when you're designing a product, that how do we make sure that it can be circular as best as possible as it's going through its life cycle.
So design is the biggest opportunity. They say about 80% emissions are locked in at the design phase. So if you don't design for the end of use in mind, then you've not maximised the system. the chances are when that thing gets to its end of use, whether it be a paper cup or a garment or a high value asset, that you might have to send it to landfill, or you might just have to recycle it. But if you think about, I'm going to remanufacture this, I'm going to design it so that it can be used in another environment, for example, then you're designing for condition monitoring, for example, you know, designing where to put the sensors or to give it the best opportunity to survive for longer. If you're not thinking about that up front, then you tend to lock in more consumption and emissions into that, and you don't lock as much value in. That just tends to be the way it is.
Because one of the things, obviously, when you look at the carbon and the cost to manufacture something, if you can keep something running for longer, it's obviously better. But obviously, but as you said, I think one of the things, and I don't know if we were off at that point, was, but see, to do the remanufacture part of it, there's probably, I would say, more skill in that than there is in sometimes the manufacture. So the jobs that can create are massive, but it's still having a positive carbon effect than going no, right? Because you're fixing, you're remanufacturing 10% of the product. You still get 90% of the original product there, so you're 90% less materials, time, blah blah blah. But the bit that you're going to fix is probably a bit more difficult. We seen it in we were obviously in the motor generator repair world, and it got to the stage where it was cheaper to replace it than it was to repair it. Right? That's the same with so many different products. Is that the right thing for the environment and the world and everything else? No, is the answer. But when businesses are driven by revenue, that's why there was I'll talk about electric motors. Up until probably until COVID, anything up to 22 kilowatt electric motor was seen as a consumable. It was seen as a consumable because it was cheaper to replace it than it was to repair it, and you could get one the next day. Right. Whereas to repair it would probably, say you're going to rewind it, say it maybe took you on average between 3 and 5 days, right? Just to say, for saying sake. So you'll get that 3 to 5 days of downtime, and it's costing you double to do it. Why would you do it? Right. COVID kind of helped that in a wee bit, whereas, so one, Brexit made the cost go up because none of them are made in the UK. Two, you then had a challenge in getting them. So rather than it just being the next day, it's maybe 3 or 4 days. So the timescale was kind of similar. But now with the whole focus on circular economy, you're saying that people are going, well, realise that the actual impact that has. But so they're now repairing them, but it's trying to get it to past the stage where the repair is massive and you can just do it with changing 1 or 2 bits rather than having to rewind the whole machine. But that's where the data comes in.
And you know, not every product will be suitable for, say, remanufacturing. You know, it might be that the best option for that is to recycle, and that might be okay, right? You know, but as long as you're thinking about that at the front end, at the design end, then that's fine. If you're not, then we're putting so much more to landfill than you need to. But on the cost thing, I do agree with you on that. You know, we need to create the right market conditions where cost isn't competing over sustainability. You know, and that's where, you know, innovation comes in. Well, advocacy like yourself and others talking about it, but also where policy needs to come in and incentivise that. And then the third thing, like I mentioned before, is around resilience. So we might get there through necessity, through the fact that, you know, from a resilience and a sovereignty point of view now, it's becoming much, much more important that we have, you know, we keep our raw materials and our resources in this country for as long as we possibly can. So there's different elements to it. Not all need to be remanufactured, but we need to be thinking about it and create the conditions for it to be optimised
and to be an option.
Exactly.
And that's right now. When you're not thinking about it, it's not an option. When you're thinking about it, there might be an option. There might, as you say, there might not be, but at least it's part of the thought process. And when, like, say for example, we've got these two cakes, right? These 2 cakes. That one that's half eaten. It's that can be remanufactured, right? So it's more sustainable, more resilient as a product for you going forward. That one can't. That one's costing you $5,000 more than that. But that one, the whole life cycle cost, which is a thing that not a lot of people think about, the life cycle cost of that is probably a third of the cost of that, because you're going to have to change it, you're going to have to throw it out, you're going to have to do all that. And it's trying to get people to buy into. That's the right thing to do. Stop looking at today's cost or today's this or today's that. It's looking at the no sustainability just from an environmental point of view, sustainability for your business. So if you've got all these things that you can take control of yourself and you can manage and you can mitigate and everything like that, you're so much more resilient, so much you can have a sustainable business model.
Yeah. And zero waste slogans around rewiring the economy, right?
Mm-hmm.
And we've got 150 years of locked into this linear model, right? So Chris Martin said nobody said it would be easy, right?
Aye.
So it's not going to be easy, but it is about thinking differently. It's about completely flipping it upside down, but creating the opportunity. It needs to be about the economic opportunity and all of that investment opportunity goes alongside it. Massive. And the thing that we talk about is, we say we need to decouple, right? So we need to be able to still maintain economic growth, but in a way that reduces consumption, because what we have now is we want to grow, the government's mandate is to grow, and that, filters through to all of us. But by growing currently in the way that we make things and use things, is that increases consumption.
Yeah.
So by doing things like remanufacturing, for example, where you can save up to 99% of emissions and get the economic and social benefits from that, we can really start to decouple that and see that, drop off with economic growth. And that's the condition that we want to try and get in. But yeah, on to data, maybe that's...
Right. One more thing just to finish, because what you're saying there with that growth, sustainable growth and growing, but trying to reduce your emissions at the same time. I'm going to give a wee example. So see the Net Zero Nation thing that we do, the cohorts that we built, we help deliver. See all the companies that are bought into that from a race to zero strategy, sustainability, looking at that as part of their business model. Every single one of them is growing year on year. But what's happening is they're growing. Yes, their emissions are growing, but the emissions that they're generating per person or per square foot or whatever is going down. So see those businesses, they're businesses that you want to see growing. They're growing and growing sustainably and probably carbon. We probably say carbon efficiently.
Yeah.
Right. See if we can keep doing that. That gap gets like that. But see if we don't do that, as you say, it's going up the same, and eventually, so we're trying to get to net zero by 2045 or whatever. We're just going to be keeping putting more in rather than taking any out.
Absolutely. And some of the renewable energy sector stuff, we're talking about that. If you listen to everybody, like I said, that's our way to net zero. If you look at what that infrastructure requires to be built, it's an order of magnitude higher than what our fossil fuel industry was built, right?
Yep.
So we, in one hand, are creating all this renewable energy infrastructure, but we don't have a plan for it when it, so we're kind of, and you've got guys like Renewable Parts Limited, James Barry and the guys there, that are beating the drum in the one sector and doing fantastic work. But you need 10x, 100x of them, for it to really make a big impact. So
no, 100%. And we talked about it at times, obviously, electric cars, right? So people are going, I've got a 15, 20-year-old Saab, right? What's better, the 15, 20-year-old Saab for the environment or the brand new Tesla? Your 15, 20-year-old Saab probably, because you've been keeping that running for longer. Yes, it probably spews out a load of rubbish out the back of it, but the environmental impact of building that new Tesla is also massive.
Yep.
So you're stuck between a rock and a hard place, but I still think that it's the that's back to the circular economy. So that 15-year-old Saab is circular still.
Yep.
Right? If you're changing your car every 2 or 3 years, they're not really being very circular. Yes, that car will still stay in production and still stay in the system somewhere for a period of time. But it's no, you're not always appreciating all these shiny new things, what they're actually doing to us.
Yeah, we live in an instantaneous consumption environment now. And that's why actually, when I said 7% of our products are globally, are in a circular value stream globally, and it was 9%, we are, businesses like yourself, and there's so much innovation going into circular economy that you're actually seeing a lot of businesses coming online, right? But it can't meet the demand of the consumption. So even though all of this innovation's happening and you're pushing forward, it's outweighed by the rate of consumption and how we're extracting materials. So
Mental, right? Digital passports. Let's
yeah,
talk
so-
'cause before we run out of time, because this for me is a massive thing.
Yeah.
And again, back to Audrey usually gets a wee shout out in the show, but Audrey's obviously heavily involved in the whole, and she runs our sustainability business. Every single business that we know that's got that sustainability mindset is talking about digital passports.
Yeah.
Because they see that it's one, obviously, a legislation is something that's coming in, but some of them see it as an opportunity, but some of them also see it as a challenge.
Yeah.
So
Well,
you know more about it than I do, so let's...
Yeah, no worries. So the digital product passport is that I was working with the EU on different projects, and they're bringing out this and there's some things that are on that list to begin with within this eco design regulation. Maybe I'll take a step back, right? So when we sell a product, market again, whatever that product may be, as soon as that leaves today and goes out into use, if we don't have any data to go alongside that, the chances are that that'll go to landfill or maybe will get recycled, right? Yeah. So this eco design sustainable product regulation was brought in to enable Trinity, and what they wanted to do was create the digital, which was basically take data across the life cycle. That's basically what it is. So putting inside that things like where it was mined or the original material or the process that it went through and all its constituent parts, and then things like the repair and recyclability of the and the reason for that is about traceability, and it was about trying to connect supply chains up. But maybe we're going to talk about this, but for me, it's about trying to companies to see the opportunity and innovate on that digital journey and money from it. And we've companies where we've got examples of that. And, again, businesses like yourself are all businesses about traumatized data, really. So I'd kind of set the guys up, kind of 3 years ago and been kind of working inside this digital passport framework, trying to align the EU, kind of own data architecture. We have you to, when companies start to have to think about it, we can try and support them on that journey. So the guys are, I'd say in the UK, we've got more knowledge on this than most, right. And certainly the research technology world. There'll be things in that passport which are mandatory, which, won't be that onerous to do. Some of it might, but some of it just be, putting some things in there that they've got to have. But for us, what's more interesting is at a research level and some of those voluntary things that we can put in there and some of the ways we can use the data to inform us and make more intelligent decisions on things like the remanufacturing phase.
Yeah.
So it's sort of trying to help companies on that circular economy journey,